Welcome to Curl BC's annual general meeting. My name is Lyle Sieg. I am the chair of Curl BC's Board of Governors and will be chairing the meeting. I will now call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that while you are all joining us from communities and regions across the province, we are hosting this virtual meeting on traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Seal Nation Okanagan people who have resided here since time immemorial. We recognize, honor, and respect the Seal Okanagan lands upon which we live, work, and play. Curl BC is honored to ground our work on these territories, and we strive to increase access to curling as we strive to increase access for curling for all British Columbians. I would like to ask Lindsay Shannon if you could please call and confirm we have a quorum on the number of members present. Facilities present. A quorum is a minimum of 20% of Curl BC's 86 member facilities, which would be 18. Lindsay?
We have 20 clubs on the line at the moment.
Okay,
Sorry,
with 21
voted.
21. Okay, with 21 voting members present, for a motion to be carried, it will require greater than 50% or 11 votes in favor. Thank you. Voting member delegates, please use the chat feature for communications and voting. Always start with your club name. When we call for a vote, we will be asking only if you are opposed to the motion. This AGM is being recorded. Everyone is welcome to use the Q&A options for any inquiries. First, I'd like to approval of the agenda. I would like everybody to refer everyone to the AGM agenda for approval and would ask if there is any amendments to the agenda. Please use the chat box to provide us any amendments and include your club's name. I'll brief pause.
Sorry, Neil Doyle has raised his hand, just looking for a question. Oh.
Okay.
I think all is good. The chat was disabled briefly for them.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, the motion to approve the agenda as is was moved by Craig Coyne, Vancouver Curling Club, and seconded by Albert Stewart of the Delta Thistle Curling Club. I now call for the vote. Please use the chat box only if you are opposed.
No one is opposed.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everyone. Approval of the previous minutes. Please refer to the minutes from the last annual general meeting held on June 13th, 2024. Please use the chat box to inform us of any clarifications or additions.
I don't see any comments.
Thank you. Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes for the June 13th, 2024 annual general meeting minutes was moved by Craig Coyne, Vancouver Curling Club, and seconded by Albert Stewart, the Delta Thistle Curling Club. And I now call for the vote. Please use the chat box only if you're opposed.
No one is opposed.
Thanks, everyone. Well, I'm the chair of the Board of Governors. Here are the other members of the board who served this past season. Brenda Sims, Vice Chair, Neil Campbell, Vice Chair, Drew Carmichael, Governor, Erlene Graham, Governor, Pauline Pillar, Governor, Brenda McClellan, Governor, Penny Shantz, Governor, and Dwayne Udy, Governor. A big thank you to these governors for all their volunteer contributions to curling in BC this past year. At this time, I would also especially like to welcome any life and honorary members in attendance. In order to achieve Curling BC's goals, we rely upon a network of volunteers. On behalf of the Curling BC Board of Governors, I would like to recognize all the club volunteers, event hosts, committee members, consultants, and facilitators, and of course, ice technicians and officials. You make it all work, and we thank you. The 2024-25 season was a successful season for Curl BC, marked by strong growth, record-setting initiatives, and a deepening connection with our curling community. From hosting high-profile championships across the province to elevating engagement through digital platforms and inclusive programming, our efforts reflected Curl BC's commitment to making curling more accessible, vibrant, and impactful. And throughout it all, the Curling BC staff have been dedicated, proactive, and enthusiastic. As chair and on behalf of all of us, I would like to commend their ongoing commitment to the development of curling in British Columbia. Thanks, everyone. At this point, I would like to give a very warm welcome to our special guest, Nolan Thiessen, CEO of Curling Canada, who is joining us to say a few words. Nolan, please.
Hey, thanks, Lyle. And hello, everybody, and good evening, and hopefully get to see some of you tomorrow. I'm flying out in the morning to Kelowna to the symposium, so hopefully get to see a few of you down there. I think it's for us at Curling Canada. You know, I I think we're really excited about the alignment that is being created and some of the work that we're doing together with all of our member associations. One of those items is obviously we're looking at a sport integrity framework, and we've got a pilot project that we're working on that Scott is a part of that working group, and it shows all of the work that we're doing and the work that we're doing throughout the system, and Curl BC is one of the leaders in that in terms of really engaging with trying to get into the weeds with us and try to solve some of the problems in the system. um I wanted to, Lyle, I know you kind of referenced to the major championship that was in BC this year. The Brier, it it was such a raving success. I just wanted to kind of bring that up and acknowledge all the hard work that was put in by a lot of people on this call, and a lot of the board members and people from Curl BC that were there contributing throughout. Um, Not only was it a great success on the ice, and we saw really, really full buildings. Some news that is not public yet, but will be shared very soon, is the economic impact assessment that was done by Tourism Kelowna that is being presented to their council later this month, and it's actually the largest one that we've ever had for any of our events. So it's really exciting for us. We eclipsed the $20 million economic impact, which is massive, to show just not only how Kelowna and Okanagan and all of BC came out, but how much of a draw it was for the rest of the country. From a Curling Canada perspective, I think the big thing on our end that you're going to start to see a lot of, and for those that are going to be there tomorrow, is um, some of our changing of our brand work and our strategic plan. And when I say brand work, it's not the logo, it's the just what we are and what we're meant to be as an organization, and what we stand for and our pillars. And you'll see that the four pillars that we've got outlined are community engagement, leadership and sport, championship events, and high performance. And all of those are just so core to everything we do, and it's core to the whole system on how we can support everybody's curling journey. So we've got an updated website now, and you can see the new strategic plan on there, and you can see some of the work that we've done. And that's the exciting stuff that we're going to use on a go forward basis, and just our brand promise to support everyone's curling journey every step of the way. So it's exciting times for us, and it's just been really good working with all of our member associations that have been really engaged in the future of the sport, and it's bright. So thanks, Lau.
Thanks, Nolan, for joining us today, and thanks for that great compliment in Kelowna. I think we all enjoyed ourselves, had a great time there, and there was a lot of work done by everybody. Next item on our agenda is the presentation of the 24-25 financial statements. But before I begin on this year's financial report, I would like to recognize Brenda McClellan for serving as chair of the Finance and Audit Committee and for all her hard work over the course of the year. Thank you, Brenda. And now I would like to call upon Scott Braley, CEO, to present the 2024-25 financial statements to our members.
Thanks, Lyle, and thanks to Nolan, and great news about the economic impact. We'll look forward to hearing what that number is. My thanks as well to Brenda McClellan. She has been on the board for 4 years and was our chair at one point and worked very closely with her on these finances. So big shout out to Brenda. Will you get the next slide? So we're going to talk about 3 things here: the results from the last fiscal year, the auditor's report on those results, and then a recommendation from our board to appoint Lone Calder LLP as the auditors again for 25-26. So as you're listening, you have 3 roles here. And the first is to know the principal sources of Curl BC's revenues. The second is how these funds are spent or used, and then to be aware of the financial statements and auditor reports. No test at the end, but you're welcome to follow up with us if you have any questions. Bottom line, 14,500 surplus. So we're in the black, which is great. It was a $2.15 million budget this year, which is a record. So really quite close to the line, but we were able to steer it into a profitable situation. The fund balances, which we're going to hear more about in a moment. The general fund, unrestricted, 270,000. The capital assets have grown to 102,000, and the restricted fund, while there are no government grants that are restricted this year because they've all been utilized, the board has internally restricted 71,450 as part of an operating reserve fund. So what are these funds? The general fund is core operations in all 3 pillars. You heard Nolan mention they operate under 4 pillars now. We operate under 3, but they are very similar. So we'll be checking on that alignment over the next few weeks now that we've heard Curling Canada's new plan. Invested in capital assets, it's the value of the funds invested less amortization costs. And there's a calculation we'll point out to you in a moment. Restricted fund, it's specific grants restricted to be spent on certain areas, and the auditor checks to make sure that that has occurred. And we mentioned the operating reserve fund is an internally restricted fund. The purpose of it is to help members in urgent need of low-cost loans. And we'll be making a further announcement about that in the coming weeks. So how did we get there, or get here? The restricted fund is currently, from this past year, negative 2,800, unrestricted 17,400, and that gives you your net total of 14,600. You can see last year we were in the red, and that was because there was a lot of restricted funding the previous year.
Did we
Next slide.
lose you there, Scott?
You did. Here we are.
Thanks.
Okay, if you can still hear me. The fund balances now are what we keep a close eye on, and the restricted fund, as we mentioned, 71,450, unrestricted 270, and property equipment 102. If you go back to 2022, right after COVID, we actually had a lot more money in the unrestricted because of a lot of COVID recovery subsidies that were there at the time. Those aren't available now. So for those of you who prefer a graphic representation, this is a graph of where the funds come from, and it's broken into 5 areas: programs, sponsorship, championships, affiliation, and government. And of those, you'll see that affiliation is one of the largest, over 20%, and that's your membership fees. And that allows us to do everything else. And you'll see that given membership fees are about 24, 25%, it's actually those funds are matched by 3 to 1 other areas, including the programs which are there. And those programs which push member services over 50%, a lot of that's to do with the 50/50 raffles that we're very involved with. And thanks to all the clubs for their support of the monthly 50/50. But we also ran, along with the Kelowna Curling Club, the Briar 50/50, and that added about 328,000 to our revenue. And the 85% of the net profit went to the host club. So it was a big success as part of that Briar project. This graph has changed a lot over the years. It used to be fairly balanced among the 3 pillars, and we haven't said those pillars' names yet: member services, long-term curler development, which is really participation to performance, and then partnerships and capacity, which form the base and really support the other 2 areas.
Scott, can I interrupt you? We unfortunately you froze when you were explaining the previous slide, and we have a question asking if you could explain again why there was a loss in 2024.
Okay. Oh, there, I see. Probably I think you've gone a little too far back. Oh, this one. Okay. Yes, the loss from last year was to do with restricted money received the previous year. So if you look at 2023, you see 107,000 was restricted. Now that wasn't internally restricted. That was government money received in March. So they said you need to spend it on XYZ, and there was only a few weeks to do it. So the money was recognized in 23, but spent in 24. So that was the most significant factor. Okay, and this is the corresponding expense slide, and you'll see the member services. A lot of that is under the programs and services category, which is the payout of the 50/50 to the winners, and then to clubs 40% of the share, and so on. So it's been a big success. There's also championships in there under long-term curler development, staffing in all 3 areas, and most of the administration is attributed to partnerships and capacity. So the financial statements, and I'm now going to be using the green book. So get your green book out, and you'll see after page 4 are the audited financial statements. And on page 5 of those statements is the statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, if you'd prefer. And what it indicates there, under assets, cash and property and equipment have increased, and receivables and prepaid expenses have decreased. Under liabilities, all payables are current. Back to fund balances, there was the allocation of all the government restricted grants we received in 23-24, and there were transfers for equipment purchases and amortizations, and we mentioned an increase of the internally restricted operating reserve fund from 60,000 to 71,450. I'm just worried I'm going to freeze again, Lyle. The notes follow there, and they start on page 9. And the first two are very detailed requirements for the auditor to make statements about the nature of the organization and a summary of significant accounting policies. If you like your accounting, I encourage you to read that. Note 4 is about the capital assets and explains how they're calculated, the 4 to 5 types we have. The restricted fund is mentioned on note 5, an explanation there. And you'll see there that the 0 figure for the government grants, restricted grants. Number 7, note 7 explains there's current lease we have for our office expires in 2029, but there's a certain commitment that we have with that 5-year lease. Under note 8, the fundraising is really a focus on the Curling for Life Endowment Fund, which is held by Vancouver Foundation. So it's not part of these statements, but it provides you with an update on the status of that fund. We would like to really encourage greater contribution to that fund so that we can create an independent source of revenue for Curl BC. We get 5% of whatever's in that fund each year. Note 9 explains how contra or in-kind sponsorship works and how it's accounted for, and also explains about the 50-50 raffle. Excuse me, note 10 explains the governors receive no remuneration. Note 11 explains the limitations we have on how we make any investments. Finally, there are the very end of the financial statements, there are 4 schedules. The first 2 show the diversity of grant funding sources, and the final 2 show expenses and payments for these grants. So we're right back to the beginning of the audited financial statements, and there's an introduction there and a further explanation that it's a qualified audit opinion. Now, this is quite normal and standard for a nonprofit such as ours, where the auditor can't verify all the sources of revenue. And the reason I say that, and they say that, is there are events, BC Championships, hosted by 10 or 11 clubs each year, and they have their own revenue and expenses. It doesn't have a net impact. It's just entered the revenue and the expense is the same number, but it's about 200,000 a year that is generated by those host clubs. So now we're just before the audited statements, and it's page 4. And here, what we're providing is a comparison of the current year, or that is 24-25, and the budget. So how did we do versus budget? And you'll see that we generated about 200,000 more in revenue than expected, but there were also expenses against that. So what's our plan moving forward? To continue long-term focus and strategic thinking, measuring outcomes, regular updates, that as in monthly, to the board on how we're doing, and responding to changes such as increases in Curling Canada's fees. And just to explain that Curling Canada hasn't had an increase in their grant for 20 years. So there's been a real moratorium on increasing core funding for sport, which is really unfortunate. We are actively trying to change that. And to continue working on diversifying revenue sources for Curl BC and its curling centers. And that includes accessing grants, but growing fundraising options, particularly with using the BC Amateur Sport Fund projects, is a very high priority for us. And Lyle is going to lead the charge from the board's end and get very involved with that, because we know it's probably the greatest source of funding out there that we haven't tapped into as much as we could, and we'd like to help you do that as well. Are there any questions?
No questions at this time.
Hey, thanks, Lyle.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Scott. Over the past year, Lone Calder LLP has done an excellent job for our organization. They have agreed to conduct next year's annual audit at the same nonprofit rate as Curl BC has previously received. With this in mind, we propose to reappoint Lone Calder LLP as auditors. The motion to appoint Lone Calder LLP as auditors for Curl BC for 2025-26 fiscal year was moved by Craig Coyne, Vancouver Curling Club, and seconded by Albert Stewart of the Delta Thistle Curling Club. And I open the floor to any discussion. Please use the chat box only if you were opposed. I guess I'm waiting for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Nothing
Lindsay?
at this time.
All right. And I'll call for the vote. As before, please use the chat box only if you are opposed.
No one is opposed.
Thanks, everyone. The motion is carried. Next item is our operational report. I'll once again throw it over to Scott to present our operational report. Thanks.
Thanks, Lyle. Always a little embarrassed when it says by Scott Braley here, because it's really our staff is the group that's the most responsible for all of this, with support by the board. Lyle has already thanked them, but my big thank you as well. We have an outstanding group of young people working on behalf of the sport, so it's a real pleasure to be part of. So I mentioned we have 3 pillars, and this is another 3 things about 3 things. We have 3 pillars, and each of those pillars has 3 ends or goals. And so what we're going to do right now is just look to see how we did in those 9 ends. Now, just to explain, the board is the group that says these are our priorities. These are our 9 ends that we need to make progress on each year. And so the staff's role is to operationalize and make progress, but also make recommendations to the board if they think that maybe we need to adjust something within the strategic plan here. So pillar 1, just to remind you, is enhancing member services and engagement. And the first end is the elevation of governance and operational standards at member facilities. And it's number 1 for a reason. It's our top priority to help you with this. So 87 clubs engaged through member mailouts. That's actually everybody. So 100% of our clubs. So well done. Coffee chats and Zoom meetings. We had 30 clubs involved, up to 21 participants. 250 criminal records checks were conducted. 224 consulting hours were delivered to 13 of our organizations by Jack Bowman. Big thanks to him. 810,000 in community gaming grants were secured, in part thanks to Jack's work with a number of clubs. And we supported promotions via Bonspiel calendar and social media. And 2, leadership in curling education. Curl BC, curling in general, are viewed as leaders in education because we provide education for coaches, ice techs, officials, and also the Business of Curling Symposium in partnership and collaboration with Curling Canada this weekend. This is as much or more than any other provincial sport organization provides. This past year, 113 coaches were trained in different categories. 67 coaches joined Curl BC development webinars, so great commitment by them to do Pro D. 33 ice techs were trained across 3 courses, and we know that's a significant need across the province. 87 officials were trained, and a big thank you to the Invictus Games and Vancouver Curling Club for collaborating with us on doing that in support of wheelchair curling at the games. And new officiating equipment was acquired through those games. The N3, which is the third and final one of Pillar 1, greater engagement through brand-based communications. So that includes the Curling Connection, which you see each month. The next click rate was up by 1.5%. So that means more people are reading for longer. Targeted newsletters were launched to supplement the Curling Connection, including the Competition Connection and the Member Services Update, both really good supplements. Website engagement up 7%, and we are working on a new website over the summer. Instagram impressions and Facebook engagement was up. Curl BC YouTube views were down, but it was because people were watching other mediums such as Curling Zone, which produced the shows this year at the men's and women's, and also host clubs like Abbotsford have provided some YouTube coverage. Check TV once again provided 12 hours of coverage, and along with CBC.ca, there was reached almost 250,000 viewers. Okay, we're moving to Pillar 2. A reminder, that's leading long-term curler development, or LTCD. You may have heard of the LTAD. We say long-term curler development. And the first N4, is growth in diverse and inclusive try, learn, play programs with member facilities throughout BC. So this is really participation. And in this pillar, we're taking you from participation right through to high performance. So 146 athletes attended Curl BC camps, and Rock Slide was up 21%. And it's even bigger this year as the recovery from COVID has gone the other way. We actually have more people involved at a younger age. 26 member facilities ran youth programs, and 575 skills awards badges were awarded. And I should have said earlier, take a look at the Blue Book if you haven't. And this is really just a summary, but it's a really good report that's been put together by the staff. 132 youth in hit, draw, tap, and single skills programs. Those are programs headed up by Curling Canada, which are done right across the country. And 47 adults attended Victoria Curling Club's winter camp, which will be a pilot for Curl BC's supported camps for adults. Continuing with N4, adaptive training events were held at Marpole Curling Club and Terrace Curling Club. Thanks to those two clubs for hosting and expanding that area. We had 96 athletes from around the world competing in Invictus Games wheelchair curling. 963 U13 curlers were registered by our clubs this year. I think that is close to a record, if not a record. And 323 Special Olympians were registered as well. We don't charge for either of those groups. It's a discussion we're having with Curling Canada, but generally we want to help our clubs recruit both those areas. The Women in Curling Summit, again, run in conjunction with Curling Canada, drew over 30 participants. So it's been a big success in BC, so well done to everybody involved. And Girls Rock reached 4 clubs with 117 girls engaged as we move to gender equity in the sport. These Curling Canada programs have really caught on well in BC. N5, the second end of Pillar 2, professionally run inclusive competitions. So we had 11 host clubs that determined 18 championship teams for us, and they put in over 6,500 volunteer hours, which is incredible. A huge thank you to those host clubs, all their volunteers, and as Lyle mentioned at the beginning, you know, the coaches, the ice techs, the officials, you know, families, all those people supporting these competitions. Hosting support improved with sponsorship kits and shared tools. Like this stat, under 18 and under 20 participation up 16%. So more youth involvement. That's just great. Well done by the coaches. Curl for Life events grew 53%. So very significant. And when we say Curl for Life, we're talking about the masters, the seniors, the mixed, wheelchair, club champs. 700 athletes from 45 clubs competed. So that's a significant increase. Championship branding and competition connection were launched, and there was improved communications directly with curlers during events by using WhatsApp and other approaches. And the final end of this pillar, excellence in high performance. This program grew with 3 new regional training centers, Victoria, Kamloops, and Golden Ears. And a big thank you to those 3 clubs for taking this on. There's a mentor coach program where more experienced high performance coaches work with coaches on the rise in that area, and more of a youth focus on the program now. And now there's some acronyms here. CSI is Canadian Sport Institute Pacific, and they their responsibility really is high performance sport in BC, and we're very much a part of it. Our under 18 carded athletes increased from 12 to 26, so that's fantastic. High performance teams achievements were once again outstanding. Congratulations to Team Brown, who made the playoffs in the Scotties, and also had I think 3 of them were on the All-Star team. So excellent job. New resources, webinars, YTPs, which is yearly training program, and the Total Athlete program. So a new high performance coach development program as well as part of that mentorship. And Curl BC was one of 15 organizations across Canada that was selected by Coaching Association of Canada for a Women and Gender Equity Project, and that's helped us to bring in additional support for this area. So well done to that whole area on the recognition of their efforts. And we move into pillar 3. So this is the final pillar, building partnerships and capacity. This provides us with the resources and the networking that allow curling to fully function in BC and hopefully expand. So the first N7, sustainability through effective revenue generation and good corporate governance. So this is a high priority, obviously, to generate whatever funding we can in these areas. And you heard earlier that it was 2.15 million this year. So I think that's probably more than any provincial curling association in Canada. Almost 500 in provincial grants and 25 through federal, and that federal, a lot of that is through Curling Canada. 50-50 raffles, $214,000 in total sales through the monthly 50-50, of which almost 80,000 went to member clubs. We also had 338,000 in sales at the Briar, which ended up raising 114 for the Kelowna Curling Club. 3-year total sales for 50-50 raffles has surpassed $1 million. So it's a big success. We like our 50-50s. We all love to see that pot grow, and our goal is to get above 50,000 every month this season coming up. So hope you'll be involved. We're really pleased with, and again, another acronym here, BCASF means BC Amateur Sport Fund. The BC Amateur Sport Fund is held or operated, if you will, by Sport BC, and allows us a pathway to get tax receipts for donors. So you'll see on the Curl BC website, there are 17 different curling projects currently in operation through the BC ASF, and they raised $225,000 this year. So you can see that there's tremendous potential in that philanthropic area. And we have a speaker coming in, Tom Barikoff, this weekend, who is the kind of the lead consultant for Sport BC, and he's a great guy. So encourage you to listen to him. The endowment fund we mentioned earlier, Curling for Life Endowment Fund, is now about 73,000. We get 5%. I know Lyle and I both would say let's get that up to $1 million, and then we'll have 50,000 a year that we have full discretion on spending on behalf of our clubs. Corporate sponsorship, close to 200,000 this year. Over 100,000 is cash sponsorship. Not an easy area since COVID, but thanks to DeFrias Management Group in Victoria, which leads the charge for us on that. There's also work here on governance, and so our board, this is what our board does. A big thank you to Brenda Sims, who chairs the governance committee, and of course Lyle himself, who is a new chair this year. And the policy registry has been updated, but more to come as we modernize this policy registry to support the current Vision 2026, which will soon become Vision 2030. And 8, growth through strategic partnerships and new infrastructure. This is a tough one because this is the elephant in the room for a lot of you. I know if you have older facilities, maybe you would like to have better relationships with the municipality. Please call us if you're in that situation. We are actively working with consultants, and our board members who would like to help here as well. How do we strengthen your relationship with the municipality? We know it's so key, and sometimes they don't have all the education they need on how valuable curling is to their community. So we endeavor to strengthen ties with municipal councils and recreation departments. We also collaborate with Sport BC and other provincial sport organizations, PSOs, to advocate for system-wide funding. And we're involved with the Sport BC Advocacy Committee, Via Sports Sport Volunteerism Committee, Curling Canada Sport Safety Working Group, and SportMed BC. And we're on the final end. So this is the third end of Pillar 3, and this is that all-important recognition and awards. So heighten profile through community representation and recognition. So we boosted visibility of this program through social media campaigns, and the award nominations rose from 36 to 44, so good sign. Scholarships awarded to Bethany Evans and Ashley Fenton. Congratulations to both of them and well done. External recognition for Brenda Chin, Neil Campbell, Jock Tyre, Megan Rempel, and Vonda Hofford. Congratulations and well deserved to all of them. Great to see them being recognized beyond Curl BC. And on Saturday night, we will be launching the BC Curling Hall of Fame. So look forward to hearing more about that. And a lot of work has been done over the last few months to put that together. Lyle, I think that's it, unless there are any questions.
Yes, we'll pause, see if there's any questions. Thanks, Scott.
No questions at this time.
Okay, great. Great report. A lot of positive progress to report on this year. So proud of the staff and all the clubs. I'd like your help with a special resolution that's next on the agenda. The nominations committee has had some difficulty in seeking candidates for governor positions because of a 3-year commitment to sit on the board. In discussion with some potential candidates over the years, they felt that a 3-year term was too long to commit to. Hence, the Board of Governors recommends that the members approve amendments to the bylaws to change the term of office for governor from 3-year terms to 2-year terms. All terms in office would end after 6 years. So instead of somebody wanting to go 3 and 3, they could easily do 2 and 2. And certainly if they're enjoying themselves and there was participation, they could add that third term and still serve for 6 years. So the motion that Curl BC members amend is to section 35B of Curl BC's bylaws to change a governor's term of office from 3 years to 2 years. This was moved by Craig Coyne of Vancouver Curling Club and seconded by Albert Stewart of the Delta Thistle Curling Club. And I open the floor to any discussion. Okay, we have one
There's
comment from New Westminster.
Yes, they're saying that Royal City had done this and found it too short and recommended against it. Governors can always step down if they wish after 2 years.
Okay. Thanks for that comment. Any others?
Nothing else at this time.
I would still like to call for the vote. Oh, there is one more comment, I believe. I
Yes,
see
saying that
something from
reducing
Patrick.
barriers in participation is a plus.
Yeah,
Thanks, Patrick.
Lyle, if I could comment, and just having seen this process for a number of years, we were at 2, went up to 3, and that's when problems started. And it's almost been rare to have a full slate of candidates. So I think we do need to do something.
Thanks, Scott. So I now call for the vote. A special resolution requires approval by at least 2/3 of the voting members present, which as a reminder was 21. So it would require 14 approval votes. I call for the vote. Are there any opposed? As before, please use the chat box if you are opposed.
We have one opposed from Royal City.
All right, as of that we've received more than the 14, this motion is carried. This change in term of office will come into effect next year during the 2026 AGM. Next item is the election of 2 governors at large for 3-year terms for this year. We have 2 candidates for governors, each with a 3-year term. Brenda Sims of the Howe Sound Curling Club and Blake Fizzard from the Victoria Curling Club. Upon a successful motion to approve, all candidates shall be considered elected by acclamation. The motion to elect Brenda Sims and Blake Fizzard to 3-year terms by acclamation was moved by Craig Coyne of the Vancouver Curling Club and seconded by Albert Stewart, the Delta Thistle Curling Club. And I would now call for the vote. Please use the chat box only if you are opposed.
No one is opposed.
Thank you. The motion is carried. I declare Brenda Sims and Blake Fizzard elected by acclamation. I would like to thank them for agreeing to serve. This leaves one current vacancy on the Board of Governors. The board will meet tomorrow to appoint a candidate to serve a 1-year term. Congratulations. Next item is motion to approve Curl BC life membership for Keith Switzer. Keith Switzer is known to be a passionate, intelligent, pragmatic individual with a very strong business background. His love for the sport of curling is a catalyst for his ongoing involvement at the club and board levels, which have also included club, youth, interclub, and high performance levels as well. He has been a member of the Vancouver Curling Club for over 50 years. He has served on the board of the club for 22 years and another 10 plus years on specific committees. Keith joined Curl BC in 2018 as a governor and served 5 years as vice chair. He also led to the adoption of a full suite of safe sport policies during this time. A motion to name Keith Switzer as a Curl BC Life member was moved by Craig Coyne, Vancouver Curling Club, and seconded by Albert Stewart of the Delta Thistle Curling Club, and I now call for a vote. Please again use the chat box only if you're opposed.
No one is opposed.
Well earned. The motion is carried. I declare Keith Switzer Curling BC Life membership approved, and I would like to offer him our sincere thanks for his many years of service to the sport of curling in BC. Congratulations, Keith. Our second motion to approve Curl BC Life membership is for Neil Campbell. Neil Campbell is a trained lawyer and a law professor. He served as board member of the Victoria Curling Club from 2013 and completed multiple terms in the fall of 2019 as president. During his time on the board, Neil helped to revitalize the club and turn it into a viable curling business, a center for youth development and high performance curling, and a destination for regional, provincial, and national events. Following his time of leadership at the club level, he became governor for Curl BC. Within his 6 years, he has served 2 years as chair, 1 year as past chair. Neil has promoted curling facility renewal and replacement as a top priority during his time with the board. He has also served as a piper for several BC championships. The motion to name Neil Campbell as a Curl BC Life member was moved by Craig Coyne, Vancouver Curling Club, and seconded by Albert Stewart, Delta Thistle Curling Club. And I now call for a vote. Please again use the chat box only if you're opposed.
No one is opposed.
Great. The motion is carried. I declare Neil Campbell, Curl BC Life membership approved, and I'd like to offer him our sincere thanks for his many years of service to the sport of curling in BC. Congratulations, Neil. I would like to say that both Keith and Neil will be celebrated and presented the life membership trophies at later events this year.
Lyle, can I interrupt with a question, please?
Certainly.
We have a question asking if someone would have to step down from their current club commitments to become a governor at Curl BC.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott, and I might add to it, but go ahead.
Okay. That's been the recommendation we recently received, that if somebody shouldn't be on the board of a club that is a member, and also then be on the board of the provincial sport organization. Now, you might get different opinions on that. We have just this afternoon reinforced our commitment at both for the board and staff to declare any conflicts of interest. I see in the Q&A that was one suggestion. You would just need to declare it. But really, best practice is that you wouldn't be governor of a club and then also governor of the organization. And an example would be member fees, where in the past we have had that situation come up, and somebody opposed because their club didn't like it. Well, it's a bit of a conflict.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I was just going to remind everybody, most club boards are obviously operational boards, and Curl BC's board is a governance board, and we definitely have strict requirements and our own policies and bylaws to follow.
Yes, that's actually a follow-up question here, is if that's in the policies or will it be added?
Yes, it's in there now. We can clarify exactly where it is.
Yeah, I'd say it's not hard and fast. Just looking at the questions, they're good questions, but it is something we're actively discussing. And Brenda Sims, our chair of governance, is leading the charge on that, and just exactly how should we frame this. So it's not in the bylaws, and it's not in the policies, but we've just received a recommendation from sport law that is best practice. So that's where we are at the moment. So we'll get back to you.
Thanks, Scott, for clarifying that and adding. All right, next I'd like to recognize two retiring board members, Brenda McClellan and Neil Campbell. Have completed their terms as governors, and we're very proud of their contributions they've made to Curl BC. Their passion will be missed on the board, and we all know it will continue their future endeavors and with the love of curling. On behalf of Curl BC family, we would once again like to thank you for your time and dedication to our sport. Okay, everybody, we're on the home stretch. Just have concluding remarks. Following the annual meeting, the new board will meet to elect the executive, and the members will be informed shortly after the meeting is complete. That meeting will be conducted tomorrow morning. There being no further business, a motion to adjourn has been moved by Craig Coyne of the Vancouver Curling Club.
No one is opposed.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time. Thanks, Scott, for your reports. Thanks the staff for running this meeting. We appreciate you all joining us, and we'll see you all in Kelowna. There's several of us here. We'll be attending the business symposium with you. Thanks very much. I declare the motion carried and the meeting adjourned.